Okay, so we are almost there. We're getting a response back from shoutbox.php. But what we need to do in this file is grab the post data that we send, which is the name and the shout text and the date, and then insert it into the database. All right, so first thing we need to do here is we need to include the database file so that we can connect to it. So include database.php. And now what we're going to do is we're going to run a check. We're going to do some server-side validation. Really simple. Okay, so we're going to say if, and then we're going to use the PHP function is set. Okay, so that's just going to check and see if it's set. All right, so we can get our post variables like this with a $sign and then an underscore and then post. And then in here is where we're going to put the name of the variable, which is name. Okay, so we're going to say if the name variable is set and is set post shout. All right. So we're just checking to make sure that this is filled out, this input, and this shout. All right, and then it's going to the JavaScript. We're going to grab it from there, put the values that we put in the form into these variables, which we're going to put into a data string, which we're going to pass to the Shoutbox PHP file through this jQuery Ajax method. All right, and then we're going to grab it here. We're going to say if they're set, then we're going to put them in our own variables, say, all right, and I want to run a function on each of these called mysqli real escape string. All right, so what this is going to do is it's going to escape any special characters that could be harmful to our database that someone can put in the form. All right. Basically, it's going to prevent what's called an SQL injection, which is used to hack people's sites. So this function just helps with that. All right. So it's going to take two variables. The first is going to be the connection. Remember, inside of our database PHP file, we have our connection variable. So we're going to pass that in, and then the actual value, which is going to be our post variable. So post name. All right, we're going to do the same thing for the shout and the date. All right, so that gives us those variables. Next thing I want to do is, since we're dealing with the time, I'm going to set the time zone. Okay, so the way we do this is we can say date underscore default underscore time zone set, and then in here we just need to put a string. I'm going to say America / New York. All right, and then I'm going to set date is going to be equal to, and we're going to use the PHP date function, and we're going to pass in a format string. So we're going to do h:I:(s) space a. So this is going to format it with the time, and then we're going to pass in the time function. All right. Then we want to create our query for the database. Okay, so I'm going to create a variable called query. All right, and what we're going to do is say insert into, and then the name of the table, which is shouts. We can see if we go back to phpMyAdmin, the table name is shouts. Okay, so we're going to insert into shouts, and then in parentheses we're going to put the names of the fields that we want to insert, which is name, shout, and date. All right, now we want to put the values. So I'm going to say values. All right, and the values are going to be the variables. So name. Actually, we want to put these in quotes if they're strings. So name, shout, and date. All right, so we're saying we want to take these columns and insert this data. Okay, so now the last thing we want to do here is check for any errors. Okay, so we're going to say if, this is going to be an if else. Okay, so we're going to say if not MySQLi query, and then we're going to pass in the connection variable and also the query. And then if not, this exclamation mark represents not. So we're saying if not query. If the query did not go through, what do we want to do? We want to echo out. And echo is just like print, or in JavaScript it's like document.write. It'll just print it to the screen. So we're going to say error, and then we're going to tack on, we're going to concatenate the error message. All right, we need a dot to concatenate in PHP. And MySQLi underscore error, and then we just need to pass the connection into there as well. All right, so if the query doesn't go through, it's going to give us an error. If it does, then we want to echo. We want to echo our list item. All right, so li, and then we want to concatenate the name variable. Space, and then we need to concatenate the shout variable. I need to put a $sign in front of this one. Okay, so name, and then shout. I want the date to be inside of brackets. So we need brackets. And then in here, we need to concatenate the date. All right, so what I'm doing here is formatting. Let me just go to the finished one. This is what I'm formatting right here. We have the name with the colon, and then the shout, and then I want the time inside of the brackets. All right, so that's what I'm doing right here. Okay, so after this bracket, sometimes it gets confusing with all the concatenating going on here. We're going from string to variable to string to variable, so it can get a little confusing, especially with myself, because I do so much JavaScript and PHP that I forget if I'm using the plus sign or the period or what, so it can get a little confusing. That's why I type so slow when I'm doing this kind of stuff, so I apologize for that. All right, so that, I believe that should be good. Brackets. Yeah, that should be good. All right, so let's save that. So essentially, again, I'm going to go over the whole process. They come to the site or the application, input their name and shout, and press submit. It goes to the JavaScript file. It gets put into these variables along with the date, which comes from the getDate function that we create down here. Then we put all that into a data string, and we make an Ajax call, pass the data string to shoutbox.php, comes to shoutbox.php. We check and make sure the name and the shout are there. We put those in variables, and we use this security measure, real escape string. We set the time zone, and then we go ahead and make the query to insert it into the database. We're checking to see if it went in the database. If it didn't, we'll get an error. If it did, then it's going to echo that out the actual shout out onto the screen. All right. So the last thing we need to do here is go to index, and we need to grab all of the shouts out of the database and also put them here, because right now only the one we submit will show. And let's just see if that works so far. We may have to do a little bit of debugging. Okay, so put the name in, say hello everyone, shout. Okay, so we're getting an error, unexpected time on line 11. Oh, this should be a comma. So let's save that and try that. I'm gonna reload. We'll say hello world. Okay, so now we're getting something else here. Date is invalid. America, New York. How is that invalid? Date default time zone set. Oh, we need to have an underscore here. We can't have spaces. And let me see if these are these going in the database. Alright, so that last one actually did go in the database. We just had an error. So if we fix that, hopefully it should be okay. We'll say John, and we'll say what's up. Alright, good. So this is showing, this is what we just typed in. So everything's good except that it's not showing the rest of these shouts from the database. Okay, if we reload, it's going to disappear. But it is there. If we go back and look, you can see that they're both there and formatted as well. Actually, the date, 1:54 p.m. Oh, okay. We had the time zone screwed up here, so it's all right now. But what we need to do is go to the index file, and we need to grab the shouts that are in the database. All right, so we need to go up top here, and we're going to do all of our PHP up here. All right, so let's go ahead and create select query. All right, so we're going to say query equals, and a select query, we're going to say select all from shouts, and we're going to order these shouts by their ID. So order by, and then we want to put ID descending. Okay, so this here, this is SQL. Okay, SQL is a structured query language, and there's all kinds of things you can do. This is SQL as well as this here. We did an insert. All right. And then we just need to assign the results. Okay, so we're going to say shouts is going to be equal to MySQLi query, pass in the connection and the query. All right. Then down here, remember we now have this shouts variable to work with. So we're going to do a loop down here inside of the unordered list. Okay, we're going to say PHP while. Okay, we're going to use a while loop. So we're going to say while row. So we're going to create this variable row and set it to the result of that query. So we're going to say MySQL I underscore fetch underscore assoc. Alright, so what this is going to do, it's going to fetch an associative array for us. And we're going to just pass in shouts, which is coming from up here. Alright, and then down here we're going to end the loop. Say PHP end while. Alright, and then in here we're going to format the output. Okay, so we need to say PHP echo row, and then we can use any database, any of the fields. So we want the name field, and we're going to format this again just like this here, with the name, the message or the shout, and the date. Okay, so row name. I'm going to put all the variables in separate PHP strings so that we don't have to concatenate anything. Okay, next one, PHP echo row shout. And then the last one will be the date. Whoops. PHP echo row date. And let's see, I want to put the date inside the brackets like this. All right, so let's try that out. And there we go. Okay, so we can add another one. Let's say Mike. Say hello, everybody. And it goes in at the top. And it goes in at the top because we're ordering by ID descending. All right, so the most recent ones will be on top if we order it like that. Okay, we could say ASC for ascending, and then you can see it's ordered the opposite way. All right, so that's it. You've created an Ajax, a jQuery, Ajax, PHP, HTML, CSS application. All right, so we've implemented all those technologies into this one little application.